Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so we've got a seriously fascinating topic lined up for you today, especially if you're the kind of person who likes to look past the shiny surface of success to see how it's actually built. We're going to dive deep into a highly philosophical source text called The Alchemy of Human Residue. Together, we're going to unpack the hidden, honestly kind of messy, and often totally overlooked costs of greatness. You know, this isn't your standard run-of-the-mill success story analysis. It's a really profound look at what gets left in the wake of achievement. And I promise you, by the time we wrap up, this is going to completely reframe how you think about progress, ambition, and most importantly, imperfection.
Right. To get us started, I want you to just picture a responsible, serious leader. Think of someone you absolutely admire. Maybe it's a massive industry titan whose company literally changed the world, a historical figure who shaped a nation, or hey, even someone in your own life who just always seems to have it all completely together. When you look at them, what do you actually see? Well, you probably see polish, you see achievement, you see this level of certainty that feels, honestly, almost superhuman. But what is truly left behind on that path to greatness? If we zoom in a little closer, past all the accolades and the shine, we really have to ask ourselves some tougher questions. Like, what had to be sacrificed? What massive projects, deep personal relationships, or quiet individual needs were left completely unfulfilled just so they could hit that towering level of success?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the illusion of perfection.
In this part of our explainer, we're going to completely deconstruct the myth of the flawless leader. We're talking about exposing that vast hidden gap between how we perceive success and how it's actually manufactured in the real world. To break this down, let's compare the pedestal versus the path. So, on one side, we've got the pedestal. This is that pristine, idolized public image we all know so well. As the source text points out, we tend to look at these leaders with this shining gaze, right? Or maybe even with a pretty heavy dose of envy. From the ground looking up, it seems like they've solved everything effortlessly, zero remainder. Just a clean, unbroken upward line right to the top. But then, you look over at the path, and wow, the reality of the journey is starkly different. To actually get up onto that pedestal, these figures inevitably had to bulldoze right through or totally disrespect certain obstacles. They had to leave so many things unfinished or unfulfilled. It's a brilliant contrast between the clean, flawless illusion of public triumph and the gritty, messy reality of the unfinished business they inevitably leave in their wake.
So the crucial point here is understanding exactly what this text means when it uses the term residue. We aren't just talking about dust on a coffee table. In this specific context, it represents the unfulfilled things, the disrespected obstacles, and the completely inescapable remainder of human interaction. Think of it like the absolute friction of ambition. It's the really hard choices that didn't get made, the crucial conversations that got cut short, and the inevitable collateral damage of just moving forward. Basically, it's the raw material that gets conveniently swept under the rug when we're only paying attention to that shiny end result. Now, understanding that pretty heavy definition naturally brings up a super compelling question. Does this only apply to those folks up on pedestals? Are these messy residues totally exclusive to the elite, famous leaders we read about in history books and business magazines? Or is this dynamic actually something much, much closer to home? Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2, the inescapable human residue. All right, we are shifting our lens away from just the elite few at the top of the pyramid, and we're looking at the absolute universality of this concept. We're going to see how this applies to every single one of us in our day-to-day lives. Once we shift that lens, we realize these residues exist completely regardless of our efforts to cover them up. It really doesn't matter what is hidden. It doesn't matter how it's hidden. It doesn't matter what you've masked to keep up appearances, whether that's at work or at home. On top of that, it exists regardless of what is undertaken or the point that is ultimately reached. Whether you're the CEO leading a massive multinational corporation or you're just trying to navigate a slightly awkward conversation with your neighbor, the text emphasizes that no matter how meticulously you plan things out or how incredibly noble your goals are, every single human interaction leaves a remainder behind. You literally cannot escape generating residue. No way around it. Let's actually just sit with this exact quote from the text for a second. Between any human interactions of any type, there are residues. Just let that sink in. It's a really profound, honestly kind of heavy realization. It completely strips away our delusions of ever having a perfectly clean slate. Every single conversation, every massive project, every fleeting relationship leaves something behind. It is a stark, totally unavoidable truth of human imperfection. But, as we're about to see, this text absolutely does not just leave us wallowing in the mess. Which brings us to Section 3, from mud
to stars.
Okay, this is where the source text takes a highly energized, deeply uplifting turn. We are shifting away from what might feel like a pretty cynical reality to an incredible alchemical twist regarding all those heavy residues we've been talking about. Now, what's really interesting about this is the highly specific, vivid phrasing the source text uses. It states that everything ultimately and inevitably comes into being from pustules, mold, and mud. I know, at first glance, those words sound utterly repulsive, right? They're visceral. They're gross. But the author is using them super intentionally to totally reframe our perspective. Rather than being something tragic or something to be deeply ashamed of, this mud, these human residues, the messy mistakes, the awkward interactions, the unfulfilled paths, they're actually the foundational incubators of existence. The mess isn't a failure at all. It is literally the rich, essential soil from which everything new has to grow.
To really grasp this, let's walk clearly through the alchemical process described in the text. So, alchemy, historically, was this mystical attempt to turn base, ordinary metals into precious gold. Well, our text uses this as a profound metaphor for the human experience. Step 1 starts right down there in the mess, with those base residues, the pustules, the mold, and the mud of our everyday interactions and shortcomings. From there, we transition to step 2, which the author calls receiving the gift, or gaining being. This is that crucial moment of transformation, like a sudden spark of life in the dark. And finally, that leads us right into step 3, the gold. This is where those raw, unfulfilled, messy materials are fully transformed into virtues, ideals, beauties, and preciousnesses. The text is making this incredibly powerful, soaring argument that our absolute highest ideals don't come from some pristine, sterile void. They are forged directly out of our base, leftover matter.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate climax of the source text. Consider this quote: "Even stars appeared from residues." Just think about the sheer cinematic scale of that idea for a minute. It connects our gritty, everyday human mud directly to the cosmos. I mean, scientifically and philosophically, the literal stars in our night sky were born from cosmic dust, right? From chaotic, violent collisions and from leftover, scattered matter. From residue. It is a soaring reminder that the very things we try so hard to hide or sweep away are the exact same materials capable of producing the most brilliant, enduring light. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What stars might be growing in your own residues? I strongly encourage you to take a look back at your own unfulfilled paths, the deep obstacles you've collided with, and the everyday messy remainders you've left behind. What if you reframe them entirely? What if those imperfections aren't signs of failure at all, but the very birthplace of your own greatness? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating alchemy with me today. Keep looking for the stars in the mud.